Good evening. It is 6:30 PM and I call this meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance, please. Roll call, please.
Mayor Jeffrey,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cohen. Here. Trustee Bristow. Here. Trustee Strock,
Present.
Trustee Westcott. Here. Trustee Wattenberg. Here. Trustee Mendoza. Here.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
With a motion and a second to approve our agenda, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Our agenda is approved. We are pleased to have I don't know why I turned my microphone off. We are pleased to have a representative from Fort Lupton with us tonight to present a little bit about the Great Plains Field of Honor. Who would like to introduce our guests?
Thank you for having me. We are part of just a national effort with the Field of Honor. Some of you may have seen it on Highway 52 and 85 at our ball fields. We are on our 5th year now. And so basically the Field of Honor is part of a national effort. We work in partnership with the Colonial Flag Foundation and administration only and set up a field and turn our ball fields into a dedication field. So we will have 1,100 flags on the field. They are dedicated by name to either first responders, veterans, or emergency workers. And we also include teachers and nurses and doctors, bus drivers during COVID, you name it. And I'm going to pass out a sample of what the dedication cards look like. These are on these 6-foot flags. Thank you. So the opportunity is there not only to help us put this field on, but to participate in it. Of course, you can participate by being a sponsor. Various levels of sponsorship also include flags, or you can simply nominate flags, whether it's among your city staff, your veteran organizations, some of your nonprofits, or some of your civic clubs that are in the community. Flags can be dedicated by name, by anyone, and really for anyone. There's no one that's refused. If they're a public servant in any way, whether they're living or they've passed, we like to honor them on the field. So the purpose of the field is, of course, to honor all of those people. And we put it on April 23rd through 26th, as you see in the flyer. A lot of people ask, what happens at nighttime? And at nighttime, our field is guarded. So we actually have volunteers that stay overnight, and the flags are, of course, lit, and the flags are guarded by volunteers who spend the night and surprisingly entertain a lot of visitors at nighttime because of shift work and people passing by. They see the lights on and they think, it's open, let's take a look. And so it really kind of just operates all through the night and then kicks up again at 12 when it opens the next day. But we would love to have any partnership that you see fit. It's a great way to, again, to honor those. And one important factor of the field is that we take no administrative fees from this project. It is run by a volunteer committee. We meet weekly at this point, and it was started by our senior advisory committee. So they saw a field, one of the members saw a field in another state and brought the idea to us, the Senior Advisory Committee for the City of Fort Lupton, adopted the whole idea, and it's just blossomed over the last 5 years. The fields also benefit a local nonprofit. You'll see the Rampart Search and Rescue, and there's a QR code to their website here. But each year, the beneficiary receives a substantial donation from the sponsorships and the fees that are collected from the flags, which are very nominal, so that we can support their work in northern Colorado. So we really want to spread the word. It's not a city of Fort Lupton special event. This is really something we just shepherd, and we would love the partnership.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have questions for Christy? Kat?
Hi, Christy. Thank
Hi.
you for doing this. This is a terrific celebration. I was just wondering, is there going to be any flag retirement ceremonies there, or is that?
We have actually talked about that this year. So we talked about dedicating one day or possibly all the days it's open during the daytime, where you can bring your flags and either have them minimally repaired or to retire them. And so we have our American Legion that retires the flags that we would work with, or the Knights of Columbus that we would work with, both have flag retirement ceremonies. So it is something we've talked about.
Great, because since my son left the Boy Scouts, I have a collection of flags
Yeah.
I need to retire. So thank you.
I will keep Stephanie posted because that is something that we've been talking about.
Anybody else with questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Still getting used to this new computer. Is there anybody signed up for public comment this evening?
I don't have any slips, but there are some in the audience, or there's a couple people on Zoom. If anyone's here for public comment.
All right, I don't hear or see anyone. So we will move on to our consent agenda. For benefit of the people in our audience, the items on our consent agenda this evening are the payment approval report in the amount of $170,186.67 and the minutes from our meeting on February 18th. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve our consent agenda. Roll call, please.
Trustee Westcott,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cohen,
Yes.
Trustee Bristow,
Yes.
Mayor Jeffrey,
Yes.
Trustee Strock,
Yes.
Trustee Mendoza,
Yes.
Trustee Wattenberg,
Yes.
And our consent agenda has been approved. Action items tonight. Like we are beginning with action item B, described in resolution 2024-22. Mr. Euchre, any updated information on this tonight?
I think I'll turn it over to Keith. He had sent out an email, I believe yesterday, with an update on that.
Thank you, Mayor. Board of Trustees, per my email that I sent out, just a quick update. The district court litigation has been dismissed for BNSF annexation numbers 2 and 3. We're still waiting on the final steps for BNSF number 5, but that should happen within the next week or so. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about it.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Martin? I guess my question is, we're still moving on these then as they're presented, or does that change things? I'm
My
sorry.
recommendation is to proceed as we have been. We'll simply open and continue.
Perfect. The time is now 6:40 PM and I am going to open our public hearing regarding resolutions 2024-22, 2024-23, and 2024-57 regarding BNSF annexations numbers 2, 3, and 5. These items have been held in abeyance pursuant to CRS Section 31-12-114. And I would very much be interested in seeing if there was a motion to continue these matters to our next board meeting.
I move to continue resolution 2024-22, 2024-23, and 2024-57, the BNSF number 2, 3, and 5 to March 18th, 2025 at 6:30 PM at Town Hall at 703 Weld County Road, number 37, and by Zoom, as this matter is being held in abeyance pursuant to CRS Section 31-12-114.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mayor Jeffrey,
Yes.
trustee Strock,
Yes.
trustee Bristow,
Yes.
trustee Mendoza,
Yes.
trustee Wattenberg. Yes. Trustee Westcott,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cohen.
Yes.
Thank you. And it is 6:42 PM and I will close this hearing as it has been continued to March 18th. Resolution 2025-14, approving an amendment to the professional services agreement with RS Tipton PBC. Mr. Ukert.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an amendment, as mentioned, to the professional services agreement we have with Bob Tipton. So just as a refresher, at our October 1st meeting last year, the board approved a professional services agreement that included the scope of services to assist the town with leadership, team, and organizational development. That scope of service, as you'll recall, had two phases in there. Phase 1 was presented, approved, and the scope and the costs for that were approved, and we're underway on phase 1 now. What this resolution would do would approve phase 2, which has now been able to be more clearly defined from the work that we've been doing in phase 1. And phase 2, for everybody's information, includes leadership and executive coaching program for the town manager, support and communication strategy, planning, chartering, team alignment for our executive leadership team, and also for the board, which includes board development activities, and the community engagement process to develop a vision, mission, and motto for the town. There is a phase 3 that is mentioned and presented here, but similar to phase 1, that had mentioned phase 2, work needs to be done, completed in phase 1 and phase 2 in order to refine phase 3. So what I would like to do now is, I've probably stolen all of the thunder here, but turn it over to Bob to answer any questions and present anything that I might have missed. I really glossed over it from a high level.
Good evening, sir. Thanks for being here. Please unmute your mic.
Of course, thanks for the invitation. Questions you might have for me? I'm hoping you got a chance to read through it. I think AJ did a good job summarizing. We are in the final parts of phase 1 and ready to start moving into phase 2. I will say that this is in response to the specific recommendations, observations that we made in December when we had a chance to come before you and share those. So looking at the high-level view of what's included in phase 2, it is a coaching program for AJ that's to last the entire year. One question you might have is, why is it paid in advance? There's a level of accountability that provides for those that are being coached to be able to set up the meetings and make sure that they attend. There's also a very detailed and specific approach to communication, which includes strategy, plan, and training. One of the most important aspects that we brought forward in our observations was to raise the bar when it came to the effectiveness relative to communication, not only within the organization, but between the organization and the community. So there's some very concrete and specific things that are mentioned there when it comes to the how, the what, et cetera. And then community engagement that AJ talked about, the idea of who is Lochbuie, what does it stand for, what is your vision and mission? One of the things that we determined is that it's not quite one person, one perspective, but it's not far off from that when it comes to who Lochbuie is and where you might be going. So there's a process of community engagement along with staff and town board to be able to develop some of that. And then finally, coming forward with the higher levels of alignment and agreement, especially among the executive team when it comes to strategy and direction, and also board development. As Lochbuie is moving into being a much more complicated place to be, some of the agreements and approaches that have been successful for so long may be being stressed at this point, and it's time to take a look at what you might prefer for more effectiveness moving forward. So that's a high-level view of what's included in phase 3, or I'm sorry, phase 2.
Does anybody have questions? Kat?
Hi, Bob. I just have a couple of questions. First, what is the envisioned like outcome expected from this? Like in your career, like what have you seen like successes out of, doing this whole leadership building?
What's the purpose behind all of it? The
Well,
vision?
what is the expected outcome you see with Lochbuie? Like,
The outcomes are, I guess the best way to describe it, the outcomes are your ability to be far more effective as a leadership team. Better decisions made faster, risk mitigation, your ability to understand the impact associated with potential choices. Long term, the bottom line here is to get you ready for a future that is coming. For a large part of Lochbuie's history, the approaches that you have used have been successful. And the challenges associated with it is the issues and the scale and the scope associated with things that are coming is much, much different than the way it has been in the past. So in our work with communities all across the country and primarily along the Front Range, we've developed a set of, these are great things to learn, great things to use, great things to do in order to be resilient, be adaptable, to lead with strategy, communicate effectively. It's getting you ready for the future, as I said, that's on its way.
okay. And then my second question is, the beginning of phase 2, it says that you're going to nominate a staff-led team to identify potential areas of capability and capacity. Are these going to be volunteer staff hours or is it paid staff hours?
What type of staff hours, I'm sorry?
Will it be volunteer staff hours or is it paid staffed hours?
Oh, I expect this is all paid staff hours. There'd be no volunteer staff hours involved.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Struck?
I don't really have so many questions, but I have a lot of feelings about this whole thing. I kind of looked at the company Tipton and was impressed with it. I'm impressed with what you've done and I'm impressed with you too, sir. But for me, it's a lot of universal generalizations that are not really specific to the level of management that I've seen. Something solid, maybe a review of our website. I see that there's only like 2/3 participation among staff. We have so many advisors and subs that it adds to the multiple variations and a real lack of control. We're always waiting for someone else to make a decision for us, I don't really kind of agree with AJ having a personal trainer for a year. It's kind of expensive on top of what we pay him. To me, it's psychological nurturing to some extent. Many of your clients have huge budgets. When I look at the Department of Labor, Department of Defense, the city of Boulder, a lot of places, none of them are really about the size of Lock Bowie. So with that being said, you know, it's hard for us maybe to afford. These other people, Metro Water, et cetera, they can all afford this extra services. You know, I would rather see organic evolution of procedures, you know, things that our staff have actually created themselves in a natural flow, than to be kind of directed in certain directions. And for what we pay for salaries for our staff, they should be professionals, they should be innovative, and they should have some real people skills. So to me, it just kind of is setting things up once again, similar to the police department, that we just train people and we're just a school for them to go elsewhere. So what I'm really trying to say is I think it's too expensive for the town. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to ask?
Hey, Jamie,
Yes, go ahead.
not a question for Bob. I'm asking you for your feedback because you've spent more one-on-one time with coaching with Bob. What were your takeaways like? In your opinion?
You know, I think that there's a lot of value in having someone help guide and direct. I think that having an outside perspective, be able to see things that we don't readily see is beneficial. I've seen that time and time again as an educator, and I think there's benefit to our town. I think that this is important because it allows us to try to stay ahead of the wave of growth that Lock Bowie is going to see, whether we like it or not. I am concerned with the money part of things. I take what Trustee Strock says, you know, very openly, like I hear and respect that. I haven't completely processed everything here in phase 2 necessarily either, but I do think in terms of making sure that we are building some consistency, identifying a really clear structure and process, and establishing a common mission and vision for the town is something that I have seen missing for 6 years and have always been wondering about. So I think that that's important and something that we should move forward with for sure.
We'll look at the bottom. Okay, so Trustee Strock, what if I see a lot of TBDs on hours okay, can you hear me better now? Okay, good. So what if we approach this, because the money is important, especially everything going on. Can we, in a way, commit to only a certain dollar amount and a certain number of hours? So that way we can, one, come together as a board and leadership team to have the same goal. And then two, not like control our spending. Does that make sense? Can we go through that approach? What is your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, I think I've just stated my opinion. I think it's up to the entire board to make this decision. So that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Anything else from you, Trustee Wattenberg?
If it's something we choose to move on, I'd like to put constraints in place so we don't have a lot of TBDs. Like, we know what the cost will be, we know what the commitment will be, we know what the hours requested from staff will be. There's a lot of open-ended potential costs.
May I comment to that, please?
Yes, sir.
The costs in here are fixed, not open-ended. the cost for phase two is limited. And we have been in direct conversation with phase one. The work that we proposed associated with phase one, we've done a great job keeping on track budget. Totally understand the fiduciary responsibility and the need for fiscal responsibility as well. Completely understand that. So we pride ourselves on being fully transparent, send timesheets that are comprehensive with every invoice that we send along. We know exactly what we're doing. And if there are issues or opportunities that come along, we talk openly and plainly with leadership to be able to understand what that might mean. So we never expect a blank checkbook. Our scope for phase two is fixed, and anything in terms of a change would be mutually discussed and agreed upon in advance.
Thank you. Trustee Mendoza, did you have anything?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Westcott.
You know, in the 5 years that I've been on the board, I've really seen the evolution that you're talking about, which is that, you know, the first few years I was on the board, it seems sort of like, yeah, things are fine. Things are going along and we're doing the things that we normally do. And then in the last 18 months, I just feel like somebody set us on fire. And things seem to be coming out of the woodwork that the town has to deal with, that are very time intensive, that are and I appreciate Trustee Strock's point about coming to procedures organically, but in my professional life, it really feels like when you are running from fire to fire, it's very difficult to have that happen because you're so focused on, let's put this out, let's put that out, to really be forward thinking. And so I agree that $25,000 is a lot of money. That being said, this was a software program that was going to help us to do something in a more efficient way, a more structured way. I think we would consider it. We would approve that kind of a purchase. So I guess I'm seeing this as something similar. But what I like about it is that we're getting out in front rather than running behind.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? All right. At this point, then, I would be willing to entertain a motion if there is one.
I move to adopt resolution 2025-14, approving an amendment to the professional services agreement with RS Tipton, PBC, TIP team, organizational development to include phase not to exceed $1,000, $28,025.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Mendoza,
Sorry. Yes.
trustee Bristow,
Oh,
trustee Strock,
No.
trustee Westcott,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cohen,
Yes.
Mayor Jeffrey,
Yes.
trustee Wattenberg,
No.
And the motion carries on a 4-3 vote. Moving on to discussion items in our agenda, Mr. Euchre, Town Hall hours.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the first item that we'll begin to tackle on our list of work session and discussion items. This has been brought up several times by trustees during trustee reports. And what I wanted to do initially is just kind of set the table for that discussion. As you can see, Heather pulled together what had happened in the past to how we arrived at the current hours, which are Town Hall is open to the public from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And so there were presentations to the board in 2020 and 21. There was some robust research, community input. And, you know, a lot of this was right on the heels of, you know, the COVID outbreak that happened when, you know, public policy was in place to limit people and how together they were and congregating inside of buildings. So this discussion, you know, tonight, and I'm limited in being able to answer questions. You know, Heather's here. She was here for some of this. And some of you were also here for some of this. But this discussion, initial discussion, would be intended to learn more about the comments. Are there, for example, are there services that you all are hearing about that can't be provided? Is it the hours? Or just, you know, anything that would give us more information to be able to come back to you to do the necessary research that was put into this the first time and second time to come back. Community surveys, we have more than a handful of topics that we want to begin gauging the community on. So this could fall into that. And basically just kind of hear more and have a discussion from some of the comments we heard earlier. I know Trustee Wattenberg just wanted to have requested a discussion on this to kind of hear how we arrived at that. So I'm happy to step through everything that was included in the packet. But again, just a high level summary was survey responses, there was staff input, and community input, and board input, how we arrived here. So, and we do have CML put this out, current information from some communities with a non-traditional work week. So with that, I think I'll stop talking and answer any questions or listen.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Trustee Bristow.
I know that I've been one of the proponents for a, 5-day work weekend. I just think it's important. Let's see, the board approved the 410s back in 2021. And, that was 4 years ago. Pandemic's over. Loch Buoy has grown. And I just think it's just better for the community as a whole, for town staff, public works, things can happen any day of the week. But I think it's better if the town is open for the staff, if it's a reliable place for the town residents to go Monday through Friday. And whether that be 5 8-hour days or half the staff works Monday through Thursday and the other half works Tuesday through Friday with a rotating holiday for Monday holidays. I just think it's important, regardless of, whether people, I don't think I've heard from neighbors and things that, they've wanted, especially with the vouchers and, things like that. And I've had issues with other towns being closed on Fridays and town staff off Thursdays, and I can't get things done. But I think, the longer work days too, I mean, in the beginning 4 10-hour days, but after a while, those 10-hour days get long. And I don't feel they're as productive as a solid 8 hours. 10-hour days, can prohibit certain things on what you can get done. I mean, you could have one day after in the week. You can only get so much done during that as opposed to 8-hour days. But, I just think that the town should be open to the residents for 5 days a week, especially at the growth we're seeing and everything else going on. I think it is important to show our residents that, we're here for them.
Thank you. Trustee Strzok?
Of course. Well, to start off, I think I read in there that we have like 26 people a month that actually come in through the doors. I don't know if that's an accurate figure or not. I kind of agree that in a 10-hour day, generally a person finds an hour to screw off in the morning and an hour to screw off in the afternoon. So I think you're really only getting maybe 8 hours of, hopefully, of intense work out of that. For me, as far as the packet went, 20 pages on this subject is an awful lot. Instead of hearing everybody comments on how great I think it is, personally, I would like to read the people that say they don't like it. My other thing is that what I would maybe suggest would be 4 8-hour days. It seems like everybody on staff has an assistant. So I think between the primary person and the staff assistant, they could work Monday through Friday. I would give them a 32-hour week for each of them, and give them a lot more time to be at home and enjoy their lives. That's kind of what the purpose of this whole thing is. It may not be practical, but if we did that, it would also save us 20% in salaries over the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Wattenberg, anything you'd like to say?
No, not at this time.
Thank you, Trustee Mendoza. Anything you'd like to share at this time?
Yeah, so I feel as though it's a valid point. Like if you're working 10 hours a day, there might be an additional hour that you might, not be as productive. That can also happen in a 40-hour work week. So I'm not really sure what the answer is. Yeah, that's what I have. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Westcott?
So I was on the board when all of this came before the board, and when it was raised as a question about a year later as to whether or not we should continue with that. So I'm just going to sort of narrate my history with it. So yes, it came out of COVID. That was the initial prompt for it. However, as things opened back up the following year, in 2021, it came back up as, well, do we really need to continue to do this? And one of the things that I remember very clearly is that, and the thing that was so convincing to me was the information about how few residents were utilizing town hall on Fridays. And that in comparison to the high degree of satisfaction that employees of town hall or of the town reacted to it. The primary benefit of a 4-day work week is it functions as a personnel benefit. We are not a town that has a huge personnel budget. And I feel like, and it's proven by a variety of different studies, that a 4-day work week allows an employer to attract more personnel than they would have if they were working a traditional 5-day work week. And in terms of the employee satisfaction, it's not just representative here. If you look into the research on 4-day work weeks, employees report overwhelmingly feeling very happy with the situation. They feel like it allows them to have better work-life balance. They talk about the fact that they can get things done on that 5th day, that they don't have to work, and that again helps them with that work-life balance. Additionally, sorry, I just lost track of what I was going to say. Give me a second. As to the efficiency and effectiveness, again, the research that I've looked at says that the productivity does not go down when you change from a 5-day work week to a 4-day work week. That in fact, because of that extra day, you reduce absenteeism, people take fewer sick days, and people really do, employees do get more done during that extended day or the condensed period of time. So I'm not opposed necessarily to the idea of maybe, as trustee Bristow said, trying to staff so that we have limited services or the most important services available on Monday or Friday, if we could work something out to do that. We did bring that up previously, and I think it's in the packet. The problem was that we didn't really have enough staff to do that effectively. I don't know if that's changed, and so that might be something that we look into. But that all being said, I'm a great proponent. I think that this is something that that we can offer to our employees, and it keeps people working for us. And that continuity in employment is really important in terms of as we grow.
Thank you for that. Mayor Pro Tem Cohen.
I would say ditto to everything that very much agree. I very much agree with what trustee Westcott just said on pretty much all counts. I was not here when the original decision was made, but I was here for the follow-up where we went back and said, do we still want to do this? And I also remember that a big part of that discussion was it was something we could offer as a town to our employees as an option in their schedule, where we can't necessarily always offer huge salaries and benefits. So it's a good benefit. If we are going to make a decision at some point to have offices open on Friday, I would like to see that done based on some data, such as, is there a way that we can collect? I think AJ, you maybe made a point about, do we need to maybe put a survey out, see our residents care that we're closed on Friday? Do we have people out there, if we can get people to respond, who would like to see some hours? I would say we need to keep in mind if we do go to an 8-5 open hours, what people may lose from that is the people. I'd like to see the data on, do we have people utilizing those sort of early open, late close hours that we have available, because we are closed on Friday. So you can run by town hall on your way to work or later after work and don't have to take time off work as a citizen to get your town business done. So if we want to discuss being open on Friday, I guess I would like to see it done based in some data. What's the cost benefit? And I also would like to see that done in a way that we don't have to take that benefit away from our staff.
On that note.
Thank
too-
you. Sorry, I'm going to chime in first. I was here when we went through the process, and I feel that we went through that process well. I think that the reasons for it in times of COVID were important, as trustee Westcott mentioned. We have circled back. It's been brought up a couple of times. There was a survey that went out to residents and overwhelmingly supportive. I did not see, and I reviewed them again, I did not see any major concerns. My question I would posit to each of you, and this is just to think about as we get ready to determine what our next steps are, and we are not taking action tonight. This is just a discussion item, is how many residents have you heard from directly that have concerns with town hall being closed on Friday? In my 6 years on this board and the time that we have moved to the 4-day week, I have not heard from anybody other than the people that have brought it up at this meeting. I just want to put that on the record and ask you to think about and reflect that, or reflect on that as we think about what our next steps could and should be. I also think that it's important that we consider asking for input from our current employees, that should we ask that their work schedule change, would that change whether or not they would continue employment with our town? Because we have talked about turnover, and I think that's also important data that we should have. That's all I would like to say. Trustee Bristow?
Nothing, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else with follow-up or additional? Very good. What do we need at this point regarding this topic?
It's been a lot of great discussion and input, and it sounds like we need to do another robust look at it and survey the employees, the staff, the residents, and just put some thought into, I mean, they took some good notes. We'll listen to this again, come back with kind of a package like that was brought up the first time.
Trustee Westcott?
I'm just curious, before we go down that road and put more on your plates, just to just maybe poll and see if we're all still where we were when we started. So can we poll the board? Okay, well, I'd like to poll the board on the question of whether we should continue to discuss.
Okay. And just have a show of thumbs, a thumbs up, if you would like to move forward with some surveys of staff regarding work schedule. Let's break them apart. Survey staff regarding work schedule? Yes, no, neutral. Okay,
Can I ask? Want to poll about what we should do next, or are you really asking us to first poll whether we should do anything next? Because we're good with 410s the way we are, don't need to discuss it further. Was that the poll you were asking for? Can we do that first?
how many of you are good with 410s where they are and don't wish to spend more time or resources on this? Let's roll around the room. Mendoza says good with it. Trustee Wattenberg? Want to move forward with some more. Got it. Trustee Bristow? Trustee Strzok? Neutral? I'm good with things where they are.
I'm good where they are.
I'm good where they are.
Okay, so we don't have a complete consensus, but you have a majority saying good with things where they are. So super helpful, I know. I might just recommend giving some people some time to chew on what we discussed tonight and potentially building it in as a small part of a future discussion at a work session, just to see where people are and have a chance to ask more questions. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I do have, and a few of you brought up, more than a few of you, to survey staff on this. As you know, word travels fast. Staff watches the meetings and so I feel I can forward a lot of staff input. They were very quick to respond to their thoughts on this. So I can at least forward those very quickly to everybody without community survey or, and we can take some data on walk-ins and we look at the camera footage for Fridays. So that's how we know about Friday activity. But we
That
could
sounds
we could
great.
do those two relatively quickly, but more immediately I could forward the staff feedback that we received.
Thank you. I think that would be great. Trustee Strzok?
If I could ask for anything, it would just be maybe a personal note from our staff, each person, to just give us what they feel about it. It's something that we could review, and I don't think it would take that long, so. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any staff or attorney updates tonight? Want to say welcome to you, Mr. Ash?
Yeah, I just wanted to informally introduce Kevin. He's our new Public Works and Utilities Director. You'll notice the title changed from Public Works. Now we have someone who can actually oversee our utilities. We still have Ramey Environmental Compliance that is our contract operator on that. But now we have someone in-house that can oversee all those activities in addition to the public works. So welcome, Kevin. Thank you very much. Glad to have you on the team.
Yeah, thank you. It's exciting to find a community that's got growth going and I can find myself providing, I hope, a lot of good benefits and directions, guidance. I've spent 30 years working with small towns along the Front Range. So I've learned a lot in those 30 years. I've developed teams that have been successful and have helped these smaller towns grow and hopefully doing it in a way that you're proud of, that you can look at your community and feel like we did some good things in our city back and say, those were good projects, and you back on the things that have been done, and a little bit of pride in yourselves and knowing that you had a hand in that. As far as a staff report, if that's okay, I could throw a couple things out that I know in Public Works we've been working on. There was, and maybe you've seen some of this, but there will be a full closure coming up on Weld County Road 4 and at 33 intersection, kind of by the Mountain View RV and boat storage. We've got a gas leak out there, and so that it's DCP midstream. Phillips 66 is the main producer in that area, and it's leaked up to the surface, and so we see a real need. The line itself is in the asphalt. We're going to have some variable message boards out there starting Thursday, and a full closure detour that they're hoping to get done in 3 days, be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. But we're going to be pushing them to take care of their business and get the road back open. But safety, when it's gas coming to the surface, we need to make sure we're getting that taken care of.
Excuse me, could you repeat where that location was?
So it's County Road 4 and the 33 intersection, and there's a mountain, what they call it, Mountain View, RV and storage out there, kind of up there in that area. So, yeah. No. No. And then another item I did want to throw out, and it's something that Troy White and I kind of worked on, was kind of in response to some of these culvert failures that I have been thrown into the fire with for the couple weeks that I've been here. But we did get together a field inventory and inspection guideline. And this is something that our staff, our public works guys, can go out and do annually or semi-annually. Take an inventory of those culverts, actually do inspection. There's checklists, there's gradings, there's ratings that they can do. They're a little more proactive on going through and looking at those. We don't have these large failures and long-term closures when they happen. We're able to get ahead of it, get it budgeted, get it taken care of in a timely manner, and not go down the road of having to find funds to take care of things because we've identified it early enough. So it's a good program. It's a great start. And having it here in-house, our guys will be able to, develop the good inspection techniques and to be able to identify these problems quicker and do it in-house, which is, I think, so Trustee Strock, you mentioned earlier, that's got good people that work hard. They can do this stuff.
Thank you. Does anybody else have questions? Well, thanks again. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Any other updates tonight? Mr. Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing. I just wanted to give the board and the town clerk a heads up that you will see communication from our office on a couple of open records bills that we think will that merit our attention. They're going through committee as we speak, so we will give a very kind of high level summary in what CML's position on those two bills are, also to help our town clerk out too, just to be on the lookout. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Are you, Kurt?
Yeah, I had just a couple things. In response to an email that I think was forwarded to the board previously about Comcast's rates and what the town could do for that, now that I had a chance to review that. So Comcast has a franchise agreement and are regulated outside of these walls, primarily with the cost. The franchise agreement lets them use town rights of way to deploy their infrastructure. And so we really can't affect the rates that Comcast charges. Just like the franchise agreement, the new one we approved with Excel for the gas, that doesn't touch on their rates. The one thing in there that was noteworthy was asking about competition for Comcast. There is some right now. Comcast does have pretty fast internet. Lumen is in some areas of town as well. I know they have fiber in the area. I don't think they're deploying it to residents yet. Other communities have solicited broadband proposals from, I've heard Allo that's next to us. There are some other ones. I live in a community now that's has Allo, and oh boy, do those Facebook boards light up with the work they're doing. That doesn't mean that's how they operate in every community, though. But that is something that the board could undertake, is to solicit some broadband proposals, and that would enhance competition. Those they're kind of like franchise agreements, but Comcast is in its own special arena. So those companies, I do know, I've negotiated with some in my past position, and they asked for some major concessions from the town. For example, one of them wanted to pay no more than $1 per home towards inspection, towards permitting, towards all construction permits, all that. So it's something we could kind of add to the list to maybe see what other communities are doing, how successful they have, and we could put out an RFP to see if there's interest, or an RFQ, just to gauge interest or something. So that is something we could do to bring in competition, but it won't happen fast. But sadly, we just can't affect the rates that Comcast charges.
Thank you
Uh,
for the update on that.
Sure. The other thing was for the presentation that happened tonight, the sponsorship for the Field of Honor. We'll need to know that's, later, well, it's in April. So at some point, we'll need a kind of a discussion or a decision on if we want to sponsor. Our sponsorships right now come out of our events line item. It's all lumped into there. So pretty soon you'll be seeing in your mailboxes our town, a list of town events for the year. So these events will be literally just the same as they were last year. So there's been a discussion on changing the safety day. I guess the attendance has been declining on that. So the police department is looking at putting that into another event that has a lot more attendance built into it, so that they can do all the, have more people stop by to do all the neat things and give the bikes away and all that fun stuff. So that's really the only kind of difference in schedule, but they'll still have that event. The Fall Festival will look just like the 50th event. I think the band was great. So we're looking at bringing them back, maybe just some different layout scenarios, but we kept the budgets the same on all those. So that's why basically they'll look the same. And then the last thing is, we are continuing to work on options for the I-76 exit ramp at Well County Road 2. I'd mentioned what had happened years past, and that was put on hold. In my own personal email, I got a newsletter from E470 for my sticker I have on there when I use that. And they have a foundation, and they give out grants for communities So I'm thinking of having the town apply for that. It's a small grant, $10,000. But it can help us with, we have someone on board looking at alternatives, basically a signal or a roundabout there, and then working with CDOT. So some funds that are available, there are some other funds that our consultant has identified that could really help us with that. So I just wanted to mention that and let the board know that we are continuing to work on options for that. And that's all I have at this time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for HA?
I'm sorry, I did have one more thing.
Okay.
And I apologize, I sent it out right before the meeting. Those of you who were at the sewer board meeting, you'll know this information, but for everybody else, we're continuing to work on doing a mini expansion for our plant. And there was a member on the sewer board from Brighton who wanted to have us investigate connecting, basically closing down our plant and putting everything over into the Metro Water Recovery Facility that's down on 85 and 168th Avenue. They approved costs for all the mini expansion items. And in that resolution, they also, in that cost was also $30,000 to look at Metro Water Recovery Alternative. In that resolution that the entire board passed, it said that we still needed to go through one little extra hoop, which would be to process a very small amendment to the water, wastewater service agreement. And the sewer board can't amend that agreement. That agreement has to be amended by all the parties, which is the town of Lochbuie, the city of Brighton, and the South Beebe Draw Metropolitan District. It's a very simple amendment to do that. And the reason behind that is none of these agreements contemplated looking at some alternative. And while looking at an alternative is definitely worthwhile, because if it's going to be more cost effective for our citizens, down the road, we should look at that. But what this does is, our agreements are our word. You don't have handshakes anymore. You have our word. So what this does is it just formalizes that alternative. And the last thing you want to do is to have every meeting come up with some different alternative. We'll look at this, we'll look at that, we'll look at these other things. We've already had to put on hold our ability to expand that plant that's desperately needed. As you hear from, Wayne or Mike every month, we're almost at capacity here. So we feel Keith drafted this amendment, and we feel it is critical to do this in order to move forward with that study. It is a very simple amendment. Unfortunately, we heard conflicting information, actually. We had a board member who's a council member in Brighton who said, hey, this agreement's fine, move forward with it. So I hadn't heard back from the staff. And then a staff member stands up and says, well, hold on a minute, our town attorney doesn't think this is necessary. So it's a long way to say, I'm looking for a board kind of affirmation, a thumbs up or a head up and down, or no, that this is the proper way to move forward with that alternative. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. I know some of you have just heard this right now.
Well, I'd like to state that in the 2009 WSA agreement, it does say that we could look into an alternative, exactly what you said for the citizens. It seemed like it was pretty plain to me, and it seemed like a reasonable grant or wish. So I think that's why, it's already was stated in an original agreement. But now we're just making it ditto again.
If you could provide me with the sections on there, because there was a 2009 and then there was the amendment that further clarified that we were expanding this plan.
Those documents. It says that if there is another alternative to be investigated or looked at, that makes sense to do. I think that's why Brighton may have said, you really don't need a lawyer for that, make an agreement. I mean, it already states it. So, but if this is just putting on the cake, so. Thank you.
Sure.
What do you guys want to do a thumbs to AG if you think this is the right way to go? Or are there questions?
I'd like to say that I just got this an hour or two ago and I'd like to have some time to at least look at it.
You're not asking for us to approve the amendment tonight,
No, no.
right? Yeah,
I'm not asking you to approve it tonight. And this was, Larry, this is what we handed out at the sewer board meeting. So this isn't new. There's been no changes to it. But no, I'm not asking you to approve this tonight. Just before we talk to Brighton, just an information that we really feel that this simple amendment is the way to go. Sorry for the confusion.
yeah, I would say put it on our agenda for the next meeting. I don't see anybody.
Thank you. I promise that's all I have now.
Okay, thank you. Mayor and trustee comments. Trustee Westcott.
I just want to start by saying that I really do appreciate some of the questions that are being asked and by the board. I think that they lead to healthy discussion, and I think it helps us to uncover rationale for different things, and that's a really great thing to have out in the sunlight. So I would just encourage us all to keep doing that. I wanted to update, I can't remember if Chief McCoy sent out to everybody. If you remember last meeting, I talked about the Blue Envelope Program. And coincidentally, the next day, Chief McCoy went to, I think it was a Weld County Chief of Police meeting. And Longmont actually rolled out that program at that meeting and said that they were looking forward to helping anybody who wanted to adopt that program to bring it to their communities. And so we're on the track to get that to come, and doesn't seem like that was any much of a hassle. I reached out to the member of the community who had originally asked me about it, and she was so happy to hear that that was going to happen. So just an update on that. I wanted to welcome Mr. Ash. Glad to have you here. And I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Cohen.
Nice job on the blue envelope thing. That's great. I don't really have any comments other than welcome, Kevin. It's good to have you.
Trustee Mendoza.
Welcome, Kevin. And yeah, I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Wattenberg.
I already said welcome before we started, but for public record, thanks for joining us, and that's live for tonight. Oh, one super quick thing. The closure for both County Road 4 and 33 intersection, can we proactively post that like the day before? We're gonna go through that. And then any other places we need to post that, just so people know before they get to that intersection?
Yes, it'll be up tomorrow. We just kind of got all of the information in, and we are making it very clear because, we had a kind of a closing it down before it didn't go the best, that it is not a town closure, although we are helping get the word out that it's closed. It's the oil and gas industry, an operator that's noticed that and will be correcting it, but it should be a very limited closure. But yeah, every way we're getting it out to everybody, the variable message boards for people that don't look at Facebook or our website. So yes, that'll be going out well in advance.
Thank you. Trustee Bristow.
Yes, I just have a couple of things. First of all, I would just like to follow up with Josh Gunn's presentation about, safe streets that he presented last fall. Where are we on that? With implementing either speed bumps or dips or, some other safety measures to slow down traffic throughout Lochbuie. But on a personal note, I think that when Silver Peaks East opened up through Berkshire Development, that increased the amount of cars and the amount of speeding down that street. So I think that was very detrimental to Berkshire. But if we need to, initiate a petition or how we need to proceed with, getting these safe streets implemented throughout Loch Bowie, I would really like that information. And on that note, I would also like to know how we can put forth on the agenda, or same as petition thing, for how can the residents, acquire chickens. And because I know I love my eggs and I would love to raise some chickens. The town code states that you have to live on at least an acre in order to have chickens. And so I would like to maybe amend that, obviously put certain parameters in place. You can't have a whole, 300 chickens, but I think that I would like that information too on how to get that going too for all of our residents.
Thank you for that. I'm curious to hear how that would work as well. Trustee Strzok?
Well, I'd like to say that I'm not very happy with the way the sewer board's been going for the last 3 or 4 or 5 months. Recently we had a sewer meeting. After that meeting, I received an email with information which was about the rates and the PIF information, but that information was dated December 3rd. It would have made a big difference in my comments that night had that information come out. So I guess what I'm advocating is that the board needs to be brought up to date on this metro issue. I think the way things are pushing, I can really see Brighton pushing us into bankruptcy. And after that, I think they'll just swallow us up. So that's all I have to say.
What do you mean by that? If you could clarify, please. By swallow us up.
I think at this point, we're being pushed in a certain direction. I think we're being asked to probably fund things that are going to take very, very high loans. I think at some point, we're going to have so many loans out that it's going to be hard for the town to pay them. We're already in deficit spending. How long can we go at that? So at some point, maybe it's a pipe dream or something for them, but this metro thing, it appears to me that we'll be servicing a lot of their area and a lot of their growth at our expense. And even if we share half of it, I'd just like to see how that works. So I just would like I say, I would like to be brought up to date, the whole board brought up to date on this metro issue. It seems very elusive. I don't think we're getting all the facts, so I'd like that to be done. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. For me, I wanted to, again, welcome you, Kevin. Glad to have you here. I wanted to say how nice it was to be able to attend the Southeast Weld County Chamber of Commerce banquet a couple of weeks ago out at the Wild Animal Sanctuary. We got a great welcome from a tiger on the way in. So that was cool. And it was still light enough to see said tiger. So that was also nice. Looking forward to an opportunity tomorrow to go to Greeley to with Troy and AJ for the WEWC Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee meeting. Hopefully that goes well. And so more probably to come on that. And like there was one more thing. Nope, I don't think so. So I think that's all that I have for tonight. We do have one more item listed on our agenda. That's an executive session for the purpose of discussing the town manager's evaluation. So at this point in time, I would entertain a motion for that.
I move to go into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024Fi for discussion of a personal matter regarding the town manager's evaluation, but not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in open session. Any member of this body or any elected official appointment of any person to fill an office of this body or of an elected official or personnel policies that do not require the discussion of matters personal to particular employees.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Cohen,
Yes.
trustee Mendoza,
Yes.
trustee Wattenberg,
Yes.
trustee Westcott,
Yes.
Mayor Jeffrey,
Yes.
trustee Bristow,
Yes.
trustee Strock,
Yes.
Thank you. The time is 7:46 and we will give a few minutes for transition and then be in executive session.